Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're jumping straight into the terrifying mechanics of a 30-year-old supernatural mystery from a foggy Uttar Pradesh highway. We're looking at a story that perfectly blends local folklore, psychological vulnerability, and honestly, just sheer horror. We're going to dissect exactly how this ancient entity hunts and how human nature itself becomes the ultimate trap. Let's dive in.
Picture this setting. It's the dead of winter, on a pitch-black, moonless Amavasya night. You're on an isolated, fog-covered road, and the woods around you are filled with the unsettling sound of howling foxes. Right by a 70-kilometer milestone, there's a prominent 5-foot warning board from the UP police. It literally says, "Please do not use this road late at night. The chhalava roams here. Using this road at night can be fatal." I mean, that sets a deeply terrifying stage for the cargo truck that's about to roll into this territory.
So, how does a trap like this actually get sprung? Well, it all boils down to the psychological contrast between our two truck drivers who are hauling cargo from Mumbai to UP. On one side, we have Raghu. He's a devout follower of Bajrangvali. He's simple, and he's extremely cautious. Then, on the other side, there's his partner, Shyam. Shyam is deeply flawed, reckless, and totally driven by his own lust. This dynamic right here, this is the actual engine of the tragedy. Because as you'll see, the entity doesn't just attack blindly. It preys on these exact, specific human vulnerabilities.
It is wild how fast things go entirely off the rails here. A totally routine cargo run spirals into an inescapable nightmare in just over an hour. They hit the foggy highway around midnight. By 12:30 a.m., they spot a mysterious woman standing on the road. By 1 a.m., the truck inexplicably breaks down. And just 15 minutes later, the trap is fully sprung as one of them steps out into the dark woods. It really goes to show how quickly things can escalate when you're traveling through hostile territory.
Okay, so the first domino falls with the hitchhiker. Shyam is complaining about the winter cold, openly wishing for some female companionship, when he spots a woman in a red sari standing entirely alone on this freezing, desolate highway. Just think about the sheer absurdity of that for a second. A woman in a thin sari braving the dead of winter out in the middle of nowhere? Yet, totally ignoring Raghu's better judgment and his warnings about ghosts, Shyam forces him to stop the truck. The woman introduces herself as Anamika, claiming she's coming back from a cousin's wedding and her scooter broke down.
Honestly, it's staggering to look at the mountain of sensory red flags Shyam completely ignores just because he's utterly blinded by lust. I mean, look at these details. Her skin was incredibly pale, almost corpse-like. When Shyam helped her into the cab, her hands were ice-cold to the touch. She completely ignored Raghu's totally logical question about where this supposed broken scooter even was, and she spoke with this really strange, unnatural giggling voice. Raghu saw the absolute danger, but Shyam only saw what he wanted to see.
Now, here's where the entity gets brilliant. It executes a highly calculated isolation tactic to separate the vulnerable Shyam from the protective, grounded presence of Raghu. First, the truck violently hits a pothole. Minutes later, the engine mysteriously just dies. Raghu grabs a screwdriver and hops out to fix it. And in that brief, tiny window, Anamika vanishes from the passenger seat. She instantly teleports 20 meters into the woods. She's just standing by a tree, surrounded by this weird white fog, smiling and gesturing for Shyam to follow her.
And Shyam? He just walks right into it. Ignoring the freezing chill, entirely tuning out Raghu's frantic yelling from outside the truck, he blindly follows Anamika's glowing white aura deep into the treacherous woods. He is walking further and further away from the safety of the highway, so intoxicated by his desires that he doesn't even realize he's stepping into a highly orchestrated ambush where there is literally only one exit, and that's death.
So, the visceral illusion finally shatters the second Shyam catches up to her in the brush and embraces her from behind. That image of the beautiful woman in a red sari is violently ripped away. Instead, Shyam is hit with an overpowering, sickening stench. It smelled exactly like a rotting, dead rat. He pushes her away in sheer disgust, and that is when the true nightmare actually begins.
Because what Shyam actually encountered wasn't human at all. It was a chhalava. If you're not familiar with local folklore, a chhalava is an illusionist or a trickster spirit. It shapeshifts to deceive, isolate, and brutally hunt down human prey. But the scariest part is that it doesn't just attack randomly. It weaponizes your own human desires, using them as the ultimate bait to lure you off the safe path and right into its domain in the dark. When this entity turns around, Anamika is completely gone. Standing in her place is this frail monster with a severely burnt face. It has glowing yellow eyes with these weird black dots, witch-like overgrown nails, white hair, and black teeth dripping with this thick, tar-like black saliva. It mocks him in a horrific, unearthly voice, asking for a hug. The sheer shock of this grotesque thing completely drains Sham of his lust, instantly replacing it with pure, unadulterated panic.
So, Sham bolts. He is running for his life through the dense brush, drenched in a cold sweat, desperately searching for his friend. Finally, after 10 to 15 minutes of just sprinting, he spots Raghu sitting in the driver's seat of the truck. But as he runs up to it, the figure slowly raises its head, and Sham sees those exact same predatory, glowing yellow eyes. The chhalava had shape-shifted again. It was mimicking his trusted friend just to toy with him. Sham is left frozen in absolute shock.
Completely paralyzed, Sham stands there and watches the creature begin a horrific physical transformation. Its bones violently crack and pop loudly in the quiet night air. The entity expands its body to an unnatural, terrifying 8 to 9 feet tall. It completely dwarfs Sham, entirely stripping away any conceivable chance of physical escape. The massive monster slaps a hand over Sham's mouth, and a harsh, deafening voice echoes in his ears. It tells him no one has ever escaped the chhalava's clutches. With that chilling declaration and a twisted laugh, the beast violently impales Sham in the stomach with its claws. It brutally silences him by pulling out and eating his tongue, making absolutely sure he meets a gruesome, bloody end right there in those dark woods. Cut to the next morning. A devastated, incredibly confused Raghu, who, by the way, only survived because he stayed grounded and focused on fixing the truck, arrives at the local UP highway police station. He's there to report his friend missing, explaining all the bizarre events of the night to the constable, probably hoping they'll send out a search party to find Sham.
But what Raghu finds in a back room of that police station completely flips the context of this entire story. The constable leads him to this massive board, and it's pinned with over 50 passport photos of missing people. And right there, staring back at Raghu from the board, it's a picture of the woman in the red sari, the real Anamika.
Then the constable drops a staggering piece of reality on a stunned Raghu. These victims? They haven't just disappeared overnight. The photos on that board span decades. This supernatural serial hunting has been happening uninterrupted for 30 years along that exact stretch of highway. The local police know exactly what is going on, which totally explains that warning sign from the beginning, but they are entirely powerless to stop it.
Pulling back to look at the monster's method, according to police files, the chhalava isn't just some mindless beast. It is a highly calculated apex predator. It hunts specifically on pitch-black, moonless Amavasya nights. And most chillingly, it steals the physical forms of its past victims, like the real Anamika, who vanished years ago, to endlessly fuel its hunt. It wears their faces to trap new prey, brilliantly weaponizing their own specific desires and moral weaknesses against them.
Deeply traumatized by the loss of his partner and the horrifying reality of what he just barely avoided, Raghu abandons truck driving forever. He just takes up a simple, stationary job as a watchman. But you want to know the most deeply unsettling part of this entire folklore? The chhalava was never defeated. It is still out there, prowling that exact same stretch of foggy UP highway today, just waiting for the next vehicle to pull over.
To wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a really terrifying psychological thought. The true horror of the chhalava isn't just its monstrous physical form, it's how perfectly it reads you, and how it uses your own mind against you as bait. So ask yourself, if you were stranded on a dark, lonely road, how easily could your own hidden desires be weaponized against you? It's definitely something to think about the next time you're driving in the fog.